Well, a pleasant good morning, sports fans, and welcome to the PR Man and the Coach talking ball on the BallFather Podcast. I'm your host, Reggie Roberts, longtime NFL PR man, and I'm joined by my super cool co-host, Mike Smith, winningest coach in Falcons history. Coach, how are we doing today, man? Happy New Year to you.
Well, Happy New Year, Reg. Really a tough day for football fans last night. Really scary moments.
Just to recap, you're right, Coach. It was a really scary moment when, Buffalo Bills safety Hamlin. I keep his name. Damar Hamlin.
Damar
Hamlin. Made a tackle on a play in the first quarter and got up a little bit, stood up for 3 seconds, just kind of collapsed. I mean, everybody in the nation. My phone was ringing. My phone was pinging. People were calling me, and it was just the most surreal thing that I've ever seen. I mean, Mike, you've been in this game almost 30, 35 years. You coached it, and you're now an ambassador for the league, and you do special projects for the league. Have you ever seen something like that? I mean, you've seen injuries in practice. Give us your perspective on how that situation was handled, specifically from a coach's perspective. How do you think this was handled last night, Coach?
Well, it was a very difficult situation. Anytime you see one of your players collapse on the field, it's got to be not only scary for you as the head coach, but for your team. And it was a very scary moment. I was watching it in real time last night, and seeing the things play out. It was very, very, very scary moment. Specifically for the players, I do think that the coaches did a wonderful job in handling it. You could tell that they were involved in the process and the decisions that were being made through the league office. And the most important thing is the health and safety of Damar. I can't imagine being a mom or a dad and having to go through what they've gone through. And we just hope and pray, and I know millions are hoping and praying that Damar will come through. There hasn't been any update, but it's a tough thing for everybody. It was so surreal to see a full stadium, basically all praying for Damar and in his health. And there are things that are in play in terms of protocol, and I think that they went through the protocol very well. They got him. It looked like they got him in the ambulance and got him where he could get the best care that he possibly could get. And Reg, it looked like it was handled by the coaches, because the coaches are the ones that have to handle it with the players. And there was no way that football game was gonna continue after that situation.
You're spot on with that. I mean, I think everybody in the country was saying, like I said, I was following Twitter and some of the social media platforms that I rely on. I was following it pretty closely, and everybody was just, what's taking so long? Why aren't they canceling him? And I think what happens is, just to sort of give fans a little bit of perspective from an administrative standpoint, the league has several people at the game monitoring every game. And specifically on Monday night, there's a national game rep. There's several people from the league office watching the game. There's several people who are in contact with the league office in New York City, from the league's headquarters in New York City. And they were in constant contact with the national game rep. They were in touch with Commissioner Goodell. To me, you can argue the point that it took too long. They should have canceled it. But I think what they were doing, I think they're all on the phone. They were gathering information. And when a situation like that takes place, there's no script, there's no playbook. I don't think there's ever been anything like that in recent history that you can sort of rely on. And the bottom line to me, Mike, is that, although it took a little bit north of an hour, they got it right.
Yep. Well, yes, and they have, there are protocols in place I'm sure, but they are just protocols. They haven't had to actually do it in real time, and it takes time. And I think the most important thing that they were dealing with was the health and the well-being of Damar, and then also for the players. That was traumatic for the players on that field. You could see the raw emotion.
God, grown men crying. I mean, it was. If you looked at the eyes of the two quarterbacks who were standing there, Joe Burrow and Josh Allen were standing there. Both of them looked like they were like literally crying. The interesting part about the update, there was an update from ESPN today saying that Damar's at the hospital. He's in critical condition. He's sedated but still in critical condition. So, everybody's praying for him. There's kind of an interesting note that came out of it. Damar started a GoFundMe page from the community that helped raise him with a goal of raising $2,500. And within the last 20 hours, the GoFundMe page has racked up over north of $2 million with 80,000 donors last night. That sort of speaks to the power of social media and the power of America, and fans from all over the world donate to a young man who, from all accounts, is a tremendous young man.
No doubt. And Reggie, the people that watch the NFL and all that come together in tough times, and we just are all praying that Damar Hamlin will have a quick recovery. And I know it's going to be very difficult for the next days or hours. I really don't know. I don't think anybody really knows, but we all need to hold him up in prayer. And we should not be trying to to evaluate things that we don't really know about in terms of what really happened. I think that there was definitely the best possible care that it could be provided there on the field, and we hope for a positive update later on today or very, very soon. Many fans of the game are waking up this morning like you and I, really thinking deeply and very intensely about what took place last night there in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think just to put a cap on this, I think fans should know this, and maybe they don't. If you don't, if you hadn't been around the game as intensely and closely as you and I have, I mean, the best doctors in the world are on that field. Best trainers in the world are on that field, looking after guys when guys get hurt. I mean, those are professionals. Those guys are experienced. They know what they're doing. I mean, he was in the best care after suffering such a traumatic event. And then I'm told that the hospital is just right around the corner. So that was good. Yeah,
no, I mean, the NFL, if you work in the NFL, you're playing the NFL, you're one of the top 1%ers or even higher than that, Reggie. So, we just got to continue to pray and make sure that those prayers are heard. And, we just want to see a positive outcome, and talking about the game, and the games is really, it's really hard. It's secondary, but, that's part of, that's part of the NFL. It's such a popular, sport, and so many people are interested in it. But I think, like what's happening all last night and what's happening here this morning and today, until we get some positive news on Damar Hamlin, we'll continue to pray for his health.
Well said, Mike. Well said. Well, we'll continue to monitor it and check it out, and I'm sure there'll be some updates later today and throughout the day, and hopefully, the prayers of the world, the prayers of the NFL world. I mean, the tributes have come in from all over, from basketball, from hockey, from golf. Sports figures, actors, actresses. People are weighing in and wishing the healing vibe to Damar and his family. So we'll just kind of keep abreast of that and stay on that. You're on with the PR man, the Coach Talking Ball on the BallFather Podcast, presented by Sports Keto. Before the Monday night game, there was good action over the weekend. There was a lot of really good things, a lot of good stuff. Specifically, there was a Bay Area air raid in Tampa. The Bucks, who we've been talking about all year, some good, some bad, mostly bad, but they kind of figured out their offense over the weekend. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to that game, and for the first half of that game, Mike, I don't know if you saw it, when they got down 14-0, it's almost like the air of the stadium left. I mean, there was no energy. There was people were, screaming where we were. People were screaming and hollering, and then all of a sudden, the guy who wears that 12 on his shirt showed up and made a throw. Made that 63-yard throw to Mike Evans, who's obviously an elite receiver. Give us your take on, with the Bucs, with that offense, especially how they played with everything on the line on Sunday. Give us your thought on what you thought about how Brady played in the offense, and specifically how the defense played on Sunday.
Well, it was it was a big win for Tampa Bay. They clinched the worst division in the NFL, but we've got to keep that in content. But I can say this: the Brady to Evans connection is back. I mean, Mike went crazy. He went. I think he had 10 for 207 yards and three touchdowns, and Brady had another 400-yard game to his resume with, I think it was 435 yards and three touchdowns. And guess what, Reg? These guys get to, they get to host a home game. Even with the record that they have, they are division champs. And I can tell you what everybody's thinking: don't count Brady out. Can't do that. No, he's always played his best football in the second season, and that's right around the corner. And I would say everybody in the league, especially on the NFC side, are saying, "Man, I don't know if we want to face the Tampa Bay Bucs with Brady, starting to really play great football, and then top that with what they've done on the defensive side. They played really good defense again. They didn't start out that way, but they really did play good. But I will ask you this, Reg. I do believe that we had a little wager on the NFC, and I think the only difference we had was that you took the Saints and I took the Bucs. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that one this morning.
I think we've been clear. My team, my Saints have been eliminated from the playoff postseason contention. And it's a tough pill for me because, all my boys in New Orleans were texting me and saying, we'll be back next year and blah, blah, blah. And I'm as down as I can be about my hometown team. I just am, because I'm not sure what the direction is. I'm not sure what they want to do. They want to let, Tyson, the guy, the all-purpose night, they want him to back at quarterback. I'm told that Jameis was healthy and they didn't play him. I mean, I'm not sure what to do. Yeah. And it'll be to see how they sort of come through this. But you know what? We'll figure out dinner, like we said. We'll figure it out. Like I said, my bread ain't as long as yours, so we'll have to make some adjustments to that.
We'll figure that one out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But hey, the rest of the NFL's got to be, especially on the NFC side. It's not good news for the other 6 teams that are in the playoffs, with Tom Brady and Mike Evans coming out of hibernation in the last game of the season, and just ripping the Carolina Panthers defense, especially after the second quarter on.
Mike, let me ask you this question: with the game this week, and the Bucs, they won the division. I don't know if you saw this. They won the division for back-to-back years for the first time in franchise history, which was amazing. What do you do this week? Okay, with the playoffs looming, you're in. You've clinched the division. You're sure of hosting a home playoff game. What do you do this week? Do you play everybody to keep momentum going? Do you protect your guys? Do you let guys who are hurt try to get another week to kind of get ready for the playoff? I mean, as a coach, how do you evaluate that whole process, and what's the process you go through doing that?
Well, Reg, it's a tough decision. You can weigh it on the scales and it'll come out, one way or the other in your mind. I really believe this, though. If your position is locked in, and there's a team that is facing that right now, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but if your position is locked in and it can't change in the last week, why would you want to put players at risk, some of your top players, out on the field? It doesn't, to me, it's counterintuitive to do that as a coach.
Yeah.
Now, I may not, when I was coaching, I may not have said that in a press conference or to the team, because you didn't want the other team to to know what your strategy was going to be. But I think for the most part, when you're in that situation, you lean towards, let's not play and risk certain players, kind of like the last preseason game of the year. It doesn't matter. But if you're playing for seeding, it does matter. And
right.
And I think that it doesn't, it doesn't matter. They're in. When you're in, maybe and you can't up your seed. They're going to be the 4th seed, I think, no matter
Right.
what.
Yeah. Correct. Yes.
They're in Tampa. So that's, to me, that's the driving force, is let's make sure that when we play again, and we don't know maybe who we're going to play, but let's
right.
be as healthy as we can, because it is truly the second season. It's not a continuation of the regular season. This is the postseason.
I think that's the intelligent way to look at it, because I think the fans, and you don't, obviously you don't make every decision that for an NFL team with you don't make every decision based on what the fans think, but the fans want what you said. They want the best 53 out there. They don't want you to risk. If there's nothing to gain and you nothing to gain and you got it all locked up, why would you risk an offensive tackle? Why would you risk a running back to guy to get hurt, or one of your defensive starters, one of your linebackers? And plus, the other fact is, at this time of the year, everybody's got something. Everybody's necked up a little bit. So you probably, if you've got an opportunity to rest your guys and sort of let them kind of heal, get a lot of treatment, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah. The tough thing, Reg, is that you can't rest them all. Right. You've got a 53-man roster, but you have to make, decisions that you think will give you the best chance to win the championship. Especially when the game that you're playing has no consequences in terms of where you're going to play the following week when you start the second season. And the toughest part of those decisions is, okay, who are the hand-picked few that you're going to know that you're going to have to sit out, and
right.
Or not have to sit out, but choose to sit out. And I think most coaches, they don't want to come across, they want to keep the momentum going. There's that thought of thinking. But I really think deep down, why would you put people at risk that are going to help you win a championship if it doesn't change where you're playing, who you're playing, and where your seed is? Because seeds are important, and you can't try to figure that out. But if you know that you can't change where you're at, you got to kind of lean that way, I think. And I think most coaches probably will. What the coach speak coming out in front of the media and maybe even in front of your team might be a little different. But I think deep down, you're not worrying about winning in week 18. You're worried about winning in week 1 of the preseason.
Absolutely. That's a good point. You're on with the PR man, the coach, talking ball on the BallFather Podcast, presented by Sportskeeda. Coach, you talk about a 1-game season. That's going to take place this weekend in Green Bay, the frozen tundra. With the Packers hosting the Lions, and obviously the game has gotten even more huger than it already is, because the networks have moved it from a 1:00 start to a primetime start. So I think it's a 7:15, 7:30 start now. Read something yesterday on GreenBayPackers.com where tickets now have doubled in price. At Green, it's already, the Packers already have one of the, they have a waiting list that goes, I think it's something like 40, 45 years if you believe them. And it's already tough to get a Packers ticket to start with. But now, they're saying the tickets now for this game have doubled in price to come see the Packers, who all of a sudden are also in sort of the same class. A month and a half ago, they were kind of left for dead. We thought they were going to, wait till next year. And now the guy who wears 12 on his shirt in Green Bay is playing a little bit better. The receivers are playing well, better. They're beginning to run the ball, and defensively, they basically took apart a division rival over the weekend when they beat up on the Vikings. So we'll put it to you, Coach. The ESPN talking heads yesterday were saying Green Bay is a team that nobody wants to face in the playoffs. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I've got to say this because I've got to eat some crow, Reg. On November 5th, the Packers were 3-6, and they lost 5 in a row. everybody, including me, said they were toast.
We did. Both
yeah,
did.
We did. Yeah, we did. And we even talked, Reggie, about no team ever has made the playoffs with the 5-game losing streaks. Never, not just one or two, never. In fact, we also said that only 4 teams that had 4-game losing streaks. Yeah. And, there's something that is out there even more preposterous. There's a team that could go with a 6-game losing streak if the
Titans win.
Well, in the Pittsburgh Steelers too. We got to talk about them. They had a good deal. So it's been an interesting thing. And what the hell do I know when I put them in the put them off to the side and said there's no way. But you did mention they are playing great on defense. Joe Barry, you got to give them props. They're taking the ball away. And they did a great job in the game against Minnesota, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about Minnesota. But Alexander, on Jefferson, putting him there most of the time. That's not something that Joe Barry does in his scheme, but he did that, and he really frustrated, the best receiver this year in the NFL in Jefferson. But Rodgers and his crew of wide receivers, they're starting to play as well as any offense in the NFL. They're the receiving crew. They were all talking about the changes that they made in the offseason. Alan Lazard, Christian Watson, and Romeo Doubs are starting to really play well. And they've got 6 different receivers that have had 30+ receptions. So it's not, it's just not a one-man show on the, on the receiver group. They're playing good as a group, and Reg, the other thing that I think you and I made a little bit of fun about it too was when they lost 4 in a row.
Yeah. What
did Aaron Rodgers say?
He said better to relax.
Yeah, relax, dudes. Or I don't think he said dudes. They relax, and that was after 4 in a row. They lost another one. And they're sitting there right in here. But, it's going to be a big game for the Lions. They've got a chance, to still get into the playoffs. It's going to take a little bit of help, but it's a clear path for the Green Bay Packers. Yeah. Just like people don't want to be playing Tom Brady, I don't want to be playing Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs, especially the way they're taking the ball away on defense and the way he's connecting with his receivers.
It's so interesting with regards to, we're talking about their run game, about how, the run game, when they start, everybody's going one way, then they shift it back the other way. And LaFleur, I don't think Matt LaFleur gets as much credit as being as good an offensive coach as he is. They've been, I know it's easy to say, well, he's got Aaron Rodgers, so that's what makes him good. The guy's got a pretty good scheme. They've won 12 games in a row, 12 games or 12 or 13 games, 3 years in a row, whatever it is. So you don't do that just by, he's a pretty good, he can scheme it up pretty good. And they, and Minnesota at times in that game on Sunday looked overmatched and outmatched.
Oh, there's no doubt about it, being overmatched in the game. Matt LaFleur is an outstanding coach, and his record speaks for itself. Early this season they were struggling, and everybody had maybe a different opinion. But what he's done, I think for his first 3 years, he's won as much as anybody in the history of the NFL. Yeah. He's so he's been good. But on the flip side, of the Packers are the Vikings, and they may really struggle in the playoffs. I hate to say it, they've had 11 one-score wins this season, and as we mentioned before last week, the odds of that happening to continue on, you just can't, you can't do it. And the Packers, they got into Jefferson's head, man, and he's got to do, they got to make sure that doesn't happen, because he totally got shut down. And it was some scheme with Alexander, and they leaned to safety. There were some things that they did. But, when the Packers lose, they lose, man. 3 of the 4 losses were blowout losses to really good teams, the Cowboys, the Packers and the Eagles. So when the Vikings lose, they get beat, and
they get their money's worth. But I tell you this now, okay, and I believe this. I mean, I've been so sort of pro Vikings all season. I mean, I've kind of jumped out there over my skis about them because they were hot, winning all those one-score games. But again, the problem is in football, you got to play some defense. You have to. You got to take the ball away. You got to give your offense some short fields. You've got the one of them has to complement. One offense has to complement defense. They have to complement each other. And if you're just playing big offense, and you're giving up so many yards and points on the defensive side, that doesn't bode well for the playoffs. It doesn't give it. In other words, you're walking into the playoffs with a team that's one part of your team that's confident. The other teams are, well, I don't know how it's going to go today, and that's not a good formula for success. It's just not.
No, it's not, Reg. And I mean, to be a 12-4 team, and I think they've only outscored their opponent by 3 points. I think it's 403 to 400. That tells me there's been some close games. And that just doesn't really make sense to be 12-4 and only have a 3-point. I think 403 to 400 is what they've scored their opponent. So, we discussed this, I think, all season long, Reg, is that the Vikings have been very, very inconsistent on the defensive side of the football. It's, they really have. And, they've played well on offense. They've been able to move it, but defense, on the defensive side, I'm sure they're only +2 in the turnover margin. There are 2 teams that are qualified for the playoffs that have a lower turnover margin, and that's Tampa Bay and surprisingly Buffalo. But, I think the Buffaloes are definitely an outlier. Tampa Bay is just sliding into the playoffs, and, that concerns me with the turnover margin. So when the Vikings are bad, they're real bad. Yeah. So, we gotta just hope that they catch fire again, catch lightning in a bottle, and start playing better on defense. I think they're good enough on offense to compete on most games and most days. But I tell you that inconsistency on defense really, really concerns the Minnesota Viking fans and their coaching staff. I
couldn't agree more. I don't think they do it. I think I've thought this for the longest time, especially how they played on offense. How they played on defense. They'll be in the playoffs because they're high octane offense. But I think it'll be a really, really short trip. I really do. I think it'll be a really short trip. I don't see them getting out of the wild card, getting out of the first round. I don't see them getting out.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting if they play defense like they played in the regular season. It's just not going to go. It's not going to go as far in the postseason. You got to be able to bring your defense with you to the playoffs. We've had some really high scoring games this year. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if it changes in the playoffs. I don't see these 42-38 ball games more than likely. I think you're going to, it's going to get back to, the old Vikings Green Bay score, the 9-6s, the 14, 14-14.
17-14.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I agree. We do need to talk a little bit about the playoffs. We got to give our viewers a little bit of an update on what's going on. Obviously, so, here's what we do know. So in the AFC side, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Kansas City, and LA Chargers are all in. There's 2 spots remaining to round out the AFC playoff picture. And the teams that are in the hunt are Miami, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, and Tennessee. So, to me, the two most interesting teams, there's 3 interesting teams. Obviously, Tennessee with their 6-game free-for-all. I don't think I've seen anything like that. I mean, they've lost 6 straight games. November 17th, they were riding high. They had gone into Lambeau Field. They beat the Packers, flew back, which much well documented with the offensive coordinator with his DUI. A couple of days later, the owner fires the general manager who's got 4 or 5 years left on his contract at $3.5 million a year. And then from that point on, the plane crashes. Okay, they're 0 for 6. But miraculously, because they play in the worst division in the AFC, if they beat Jacksonville on the road this weekend, they'll win the division, the AFC South. Conversely, one of the better stories in the AFC South is Jacksonville with regards to how well the quarterback's kind of come of age, how well he's played. They've won 4 in a row. Their run game's going. They're playing well on defense. And if they win Sunday, if they beat Tennessee at home in Jacksonville, they'll be AFC South champs. Give us your take on maybe both your take on Tennessee and Jacksonville. But I think Jacksonville, to me, will get the edge because the quarterback is playing out of his mind right now.
Oh, there's no doubt that Jacksonville is playing the best football of the year, and their young quarterback has come into his own. I'm got to say this. I mentioned earlier I was wrong. What the hell was I thinking? I said that Jacksonville was a year or two away when they started to make a little bit of noise, but I didn't think there was going to be a free fall like they had in Tennessee with the injury to the quarterback and all the other things that you've mentioned. And it'll be very interesting game this week in Jacksonville. I was very impressed with the way that Jacksonville played against the Texans this week. They really played well. It didn't matter if they won or lost this game. I think Doug Peterson, he took the philosophy of, we're going to go out and keep the gas pedal down and try to boat race our way into the playoffs. And props to the organization in Jacksonville. Quick change of culture. And I think that and having the number one pick in the draft, playing like the number one pick in the draft, really, really helps. He has matured in the last 6 or 7 games. You watch the confidence that he's playing with, and when your quarterback's playing with confidence, the rest of your team, plays with confidence. So, that's a Jacksonville or Tennessee question when you ask who's going to get it. It's a win and in game,
right?
Next week in the South, and then the other part of the conversation is there's 3 teams going for one spot, and I think the clearest path for any of the teams is New England controls their own destiny by beating the Buffalo Bills. And I think it's really interesting, Reg, that people have just been all over the Patriots this year about, their coaching staff, especially on the offensive side of the ball, kind of thinking outside of the box with Coach Belichick. But it's the last week of the season, and the New England Patriots still control their own destiny with the win against Buffalo. Now that's a tough ask, but they do control their own destiny. Miami needs a win over the Jets, and they need for the Patriots to lose. And Miami's not playing good ball right now. I mean, they've lost 5 in a row. So if somehow they get into the playoffs, we've just blown up the
everything. Blown the whole
losing streaks and getting into the playoff. And then I think I hope we talk a little bit more is, Pittsburgh, they need to win versus Cleveland, and they need both New England and Miami to lose. And that might be the real clearest path if you were looking at the betting lines and things like that. I think Pittsburgh probably has the clearest path because they're going to beat Cleveland, and New England's got a tough road to hoe, and Miami is just real. And their injury at quarterback, they don't have a quarterback to play. They're not playing good ball right now.
Well, let me go back to one point you made about a change in culture, because you did it as successfully as anybody's done it in football in 2008. I mean, the Falcons in 2008, when you got there, we were a dumpster fire. I mean, people in the front office were like, okay, what's this guy going to do? He's newly come in. He's a coordinator. He'd come in, and you probably don't even remember this. The night you flew in, I met you at Mr. Blank's hangar, and we sat there for about an hour. We went over your press materials. And as soon as I got back to my house, as soon as I got in the car and we finished, all my guys were calling, Reg, what'd you think? What did you first? I said, dude, we're going to be okay. I said, we're going to be okay. Because number one, he knows what he's doing. He's calm. He's patient. He takes advice, unlike the previous guy who was in the chair. So changing the culture has a lot to do with the guy who's sitting in the big chair with the leather and with the big office that overlooks the practice field. And you did it as successfully as anybody in football based on where we were as an organization with, getting rid of Mike Vick and coming in and establishing the defense and the run game and the culture. Because you talk about it all the time. You win in the locker room, but you also win in the building. And you did a lot of things in the building where you sat with the marketing department. You came down and you sat with the PR department. You hung out with the training staff and the medical team and the marketing guys. You made it like this just isn't just your team. It's everybody's team. And we bought in and, we did really, really well there for a long period of time. And kudos to you for doing that.
Well, thanks, Reg, but we did it. And it's not me. And we needed to let everybody know when we got there that they were going to be part of the solution, and they were. And we all had issues to deal with as an organization, but we were able to come together, have open lines of communication, and help one another. And I think it's not always the 53 and the coaching staff that make a successful organization. It takes a whole lot more. And I think that's one thing that people often forget. They look at the roster and they look at the quarterback. Those are all important pieces. Yeah. But the foundation of an organization is probably the most important thing. And then the foundation is set with the people in the PR, in the medical, in the equipment room, the people that sell tickets. Those are all the very important aspects of a winning football team. It's not just X's and O's. I used to tell you all the time, X's and O's are overrated. It's not always about X's and O's. It's so much more involved, and it's not just the 53 and the 20 coaches that you have. It's the training, it's the training staff. It's the people that sell, the people that go and connect in the communities. Those are the things that make a successful organization. And usually successful organizations have winning records. It's funny how it works that way.
Well, it's funny. It's right. That's probably why you're the winningest coach in Falcons history, because we had a successful organization. That is why. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't me. It was the organization and the wherewithal for everybody to come in and work hard. But
you came in and sort of changed the mindset, which is so important. Which is a lot of what Coach Peterson has done in Jacksonville. We thought they were going to be on a little bit longer timeline, but I'm in communication. I'm in regular communication with the PR person in Jacksonville, and he talks about the energy that Coach Peterson and his coaching staff have brought to the building, and the buy-in with he's willing to listen. In other words, you can go in and plead your case. I could go in sometimes to talk to you about media things that are going on in the media. I didn't win every argument. Let's be real about it. I didn't win every argument, but I would say to you, I could say to you, Mike, here's what I think. Here's what I think we should do. Here's what they're saying. Why don't we do this? And we had really good communication. I think that goes a long way towards what's happening in Jacksonville as far as how he's communicating according to people within the building, how he's communicating with people who run and work in the building.
Yeah, well, and Reg, argument may not be the right way to say it. I think, we have discussions, and we all have different discussions. And when you can have open discussions,
yes,
and be open-minded to the other person's point of view, then you're probably going to get a better result than going in there and having an argument. But and
not everybody sees it.
Kudos to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and what a story if they take control of this playoff run by beating the Tennessee Titans this week.
Well, let's talk about Pittsburgh, because what they've done. Here's a guy that had coach that never had a losing season. Mike Tomlin, close friend of yours, and you guys are very close. But there was, he took a lot of criticism this year, but it's hard because, people don't understand. Quarterback was there 20 years. Then you draft a guy from Pitt right across the way, comes in, he struggled a little bit. But you know what? The last couple of 4 games, he's kind of found his way a little bit. And so, the Steelers, they got a little bit of, they need some help. They got to win. They got to beat Cleveland Sunday, but they also need the Bills to beat or tie the Patriots. They need the Jets to beat or tie the Dolphins. That happens. They earn a trip to the playoffs. What's your thoughts about the Steelers and how the quarterback's playing and how they're playing overall as a team? And should they get into the playoffs? Could they make some noise?
Got to be really excited if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, not only for this season, the way that they've that they've been able to overcome the issues that they've had, and Mike Tomlin and his his coaching staff have done it for a long time, and Coach Tomlin's never had a losing season, and it could, if you would have said that 5 or 6 weeks ago, it's going you would say, well, that streak's over,
right.
So they've done a wonderful job in terms of what they've done in developing a quarterback, and it's taken some time. You mentioned that that he's from Pittsburgh, played at the University of Pittsburgh. Their offices are in the same stadium, so they know him well. They know him well, but it bodes well for the Steelers. They need some help, but it bodes well that the rookie quarterback has started to level out his play, and he's doing some good things. And the last 2 games he's taken them down in late fourth quarter drives.
Last game.
Yeah. Last fourth quarter drives in the NFL by a young quarterback, that builds more confidence than anything, and they're on a roll. They've won 5 out of 6, and wouldn't surprise me one bit if the Steelers get in. Now, I don't know that they're ready to compete in the playoffs like the Steelers of old. The Steelers of the past with with Ben Roethlisberger, but let me tell you, Pickett is, he's maturing very, very quickly, and kudos to Coach Tomlin and his coaching staff. They know how to bring guys along, and they've done an outstanding job. Even if they don't make the playoffs, I don't think anybody thought they were going to have the season that they've had thus far.
You know what? It's a really good story going on in Pittsburgh, but you know what? We're going to change gears a little bit. Talk about a story that didn't really go so well. And that's out in the desert in Las Vegas with what happened with them. And I know they're not a playoff team, but I think it's worth talking about because, Mike, you talk about all the time how the NFL is a quarterback-driven league. And what happened there, give me your thoughts on how that whole situation with Carr when he was, we got Saturday, they benched him after a couple of poor performances. They benched him. They went with kind of a young guy. Give me your take on how that went down and what are your thoughts on how the Raiders move forward without Carr.
Well, Reg, the Raiders have they've made some through their history. They've made some very, very different decisions. I mean, I don't know how to put it. It goes all the way back. Last week we talked about all the one and dones, the coaches. And I started to think, okay, well, which team had the most one and dones? Well, guess which team it was? The Oakland Raiders. They in that list of 16, there were 3 coaches that were relieved during their first season. I think it was Joe Bugle, Art Shell, and Hugh Jackson. But that's the Raiders. They make some decisions that you scratch your head, but it does not surprise me that they're parting ways with Derek Carr because of his guaranteed money for injury. I believe that was a driving force, and more teams are going to start making these decisions based on the player's possibility of having to receive guaranteed money if he's injured, Wow. And we like to say it, Reg, those are business decisions that are made. I don't think that was a football decision, even though the Raiders came out and played good football this week with a Patriot connection with the quarterback that they put into the game. But they were doing in the business decision. They were protecting $40.3 million that they would have owed Carr if he would have gotten injured. But here's the crazy thing about it in my mind, they just signed this guy to a $121 million 3-year contract in the spring of last year. So what a difference 7 months makes. Now, I know it was a new administration, coming in terms of, a head coach, but, David Carr, Derek Carr, David's his older brother, but Derek holds most of all the records in the Raiders, in the Raiders passing department. And believe me, there's going to be about 16 to 20 teams that will be trying to upgrade the back position this offseason, and he'll be in that discussion. Jared Stidham did a great job. He played for Josh this past week against 49ers.
You just went. I can't hear you. I lost your audio.
Can you hear me now?
We lost. Did you help me there?
Yeah, I can hear both of you guys.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Okay. You hear both of us?
Yeah, I got you now. You just got to cut out there for a little bit talking about Carr. You can kind of clean that one up, can't you? You can just kind of cut out what we said that we couldn't hear.
Yeah, just start from the beginning of where you left off, and then that will be cool. Or beginning of the question, whichever is more comfortable for you guys.
I'll just say that I'm going to start back here, and you can try to put this together.
Yeah.
Reg, they made a business decision, and it wasn't a skill set decision. Right. In my opinion, it's not a good look for the Raiders, and it's really not a good look for the for the NFL. But more and more people will be doing that in the future. When they made this decision, the Raiders were not eliminated from the possibility of making the playoffs. And they had just signed him to a $121 million contract for 3 years. That's $40 million a year.
Yep.
In the spring of last year. What happened in 7 months? And they lost games like unbelievable ways through the first 14, but they must have come to a conclusion that they needed to move on from David Carr. And it was short term. It looks like it was a good decision because the Raiders took the 49ers to overtime with Jared Stidham.
I tell you what, it just optically it looks bad. It just looks bad that you sign a guy 7 months ago to a $121 million contract at $40 million a year, and then 7 months later, okay, we're gonna pass. We're gonna let you go home to go do whatever you do, just so we don't have to pay you the rest of it. I don't know that. Yeah, that doesn't look good.
Business is business, and it's a business in the NFL. And and Reg, that's going to lead to a great off-season discussion that we're going to be able to have. Is the quarterback carousel in the NFL, and how many truly, sure enough, elite quarterbacks are there, and then how many of them fit into the category of we can win with this guy. And then I think it'll be great, a great discussion to go through all 32 teams, and unfortunately everybody's looking for a quarterback. It's a quarterback driven league, and we're going to have some great discussions.
We will,
in the off season, and talk about how many of them are elite, how many of them you can win with, how many you can't win with, and how many are placeholders. And then you have the outliers that we've discussed today. Right. The great discussions to have about Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Because they're the graybeards.
Absolutely.
It's not long term, it's short term, but they're two of the greatest to play. So it'll be a wonderful discussion for us to have in the off season about the NFL quarterback carousel and how the prices just keep going up and up and up.
Let's finish up here. You're finishing up on the PR man and the coach talking ball on the BallFather Podcast presented by Sportskeeda. NFC playoff picture. We kind of finish that up. Green Bay earns a trip to the playoffs with the win over if they win, they beat the Packers. If the Packers beat the Lions at Lambeau Field on Sunday night, they're in. Detroit earns a trip to the playoffs with a win over Green Bay. and the Seattle Seahawks lost to the Los Angeles Raiders. And then Seahawks earn a trip to the playoffs with a win over the LA Rams and the Detroit Lions tie or win with the Packers. I think Seattle's dreams. Seattle won't make it. I think Green Bay takes care of business based on what the quarterback's doing, how well he's doing, and I think they get in. So, you know, the playoffs will obviously be set, Mike, after this weekend, which sort of we can transition a little bit to talk a little bit about the college game. You know, the college game this week, there were two great semifinal games with Georgia, you know, taking everything that Ohio State had, and they pulled through on that one. And then, TCU played a really, really good game, and they beat up on Michigan. So Georgia's going to face TCU on Monday night, 6 days from now, for the college football championship. Give me your take on what you think, who you think will win, and who you like. And the one other question I wanted to ask you was about the quarterback at Ohio State, C.J. Stroud, who even in the loss, I think he set himself up nicely for this upcoming March and April. I think he set himself up really, really nicely.
Yeah, well, I think that the semifinals in college football this week were just fantastic. I mean, they were much better than I anticipated. I really was surprised at how well TCU played, and you've got to give kudos to the TCU players and the coaching staff, because they had a great plan against Michigan, and on paper, this game wasn't going to be very close.
No,
it was played. TCU took it to the Michigan Wolverines. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it was a hard-fought game, but I don't think there was ever any doubt after the way the first quarter went that it was going to be a win for TCU. And I thought there was no way that TCU would be able to even stay close to Michigan. So it was, it's a great story. The other game, the late game. I mean, you talk about so much drama in that ball game between the Georgia Bulldogs and Ohio State. Ohio State played about as good as they could possibly play.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think Georgia is the number one team in the nation, with the depth that they have from top to bottom. But kudos to Ohio State in taking putting Georgia on the ropes in the semifinal. But they play the game because they want to see who's going to win it, and it'll be an interesting one out there I guess it's at SoFi at the big
in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles. So it'll be a great event. It'll be a great. I think it'll be a very good game. I really do. And Coach Dykes and his staff, you got to give them kudos for what they've done all year long. You're
right. He had them going. I didn't think that game would be close. And for them, I mean, they could run it. They played really good defense. They pressured the quarterback. I mean, they did a really, really nice job. They confused him. I mean, Sonny Dykes and his staff had those guys playing. I think they'll be in the game with George. But I like Kirby Smart and his guys and what he's done, the culture that he's built in Athens. It's hard. It'll be hard to bet against those guys because one, they played the semifinal game. Basically, it was a home game. They played in Atlanta. As much as Georgia, as close as Georgia is, Athens is to Atlanta. That was basically a home game for them. But they got to go. They got to go to the neutral site across the country. That may have some effect. But I just think from a physical standpoint, and plus, I'm a little bit of a Southeastern Conference snob. I don't know if you know that, but I am.
I know you are, Reg. But I'll say one of the things that I took from the Ohio State Georgia game was the C.J. Stroud. He helped his stock for the NFL draft. I mean, he was calm, cool, and collected. You saw a smooth operator, and he had Georgia on the ropes single-handedly. And if they don't lose the wide receiver, Georgia may not have won that game.
I think you're 100% right.
And
I think you nailed it. He
Yeah.
nailed it.
Yeah.
If they don't lose Marvin Harrison Jr., I think it's some two different opponents. I think it's a different opponent on one side that's going to Los Angeles. I really believe that.
Yeah, it was tough to see him have to leave the game because of a concussion or some type of head injury. But we've got to make sure player safety is the most important thing, even more important than the outcome of the game. And I think they made the right decision, although it definitely had an effect on the outcome of the football game, because Marvin Harrison Jr. was on fire. He and CJ Stroud, they were basically cutting up, one of the best defenses in all of college football.
Mike, just to finish up a little bit, do you think, college football in the NFL, you're always under review. The players are bigger, the game is fast. Do you think the people who administrate college football will look at that target zone based on that hit from that defensive back against Marvin Harrison Jr.? Because it looked close. I know they looked at it and they didn't, and the player wasn't called for targeting. But in your mind, do you think they'll look at that in the offseason and maybe enlarge that strike zone on hitting guys who are defenseless trying to catch the ball?
Reggie, I know they'll take a look at it. I don't think there's any doubt. Player safety is at the forefront of the NFL and college football. And if the people that are making the decisions decide that we need to have a bigger strike zone or safety area for our players, I'm all for it, because we need to make sure that inherently the game of football is a dangerous game. Other sports that people play are dangerous as well, but we need to try to continue to do everything in our power, and if we can legislate it, that's good. If we can improve it with technology, that's good. We need to make the game safer for all of the participants, and I do think that both the NFL and the NCAA will and should take a good look at some of the rules and how they can make changes that will make the game much more safer for all of our players.
Yeah, I think that's well put.
Yeah,
we'll leave it there. Listen, Coach, we'll be checking the situation to see how Damar is doing. I think there was while we've been on the call, there's been some updates from ESPN about sort of clarifying Troy Vincent's remarks. So we'll monitor that and stay on top of that, and then we'll be back next week to sort of talk about to set the table for the AFC and NFC playoffs and see who's hot, who's playing, who's hurt, and we'll get back to it, man. Have a great week,
Reggie. You do the same, and let's continue to pray for Damar Hamlin and his family, and that he has a speedy recovery.
Will do, man. Have a great day. Take care, Coach, man. We'll see you
soon.
All
right, man. We'll talk
All right.
soon.
All right, take care. Bye.